Hello again. I know it's only been about a day or something since I made my last video, but Rudy made a response to it, and I saw a few other things, and a few other things came up since that video that I wanted to mention. So yeah, I have a list of things to talk about here, and yeah, it's a big list, but most of them are probably not gonna last more than like a minute or two, if at all, or if that long. Some of them, but some will last probably a pretty fairly long time to talk about. But I guess let's start going through the list. Um, so it was funny that on the day that I uploaded that video, I actually uploaded it like I recorded it like really late. Um, on the 20th, I believe, really late. But then I think I actually uploaded it because it was that late on the 21st. So it was like maybe 12 or 12:30 a.m. or something like that, I believe, when I uploaded it. But then only a few hours later when I woke up, that one channel, or that one guy, John Laban, uploaded a video. And the thing is that I mentioned in the video that I made, um, the whole 311 thing, and I also mentioned the 311 in, well, that's why I mentioned it in the Warcraft 3 patch notes or whatever, the 1.31, and then that made me mention the 311 thing. But I mentioned John the Bon and the this other guy, uh, fuck. He just has his alias as the fucking the oh my god, what the hell is his name? The fucking guy from Afghanistan, the fake guy with the, as Matt would say, with the dialysis bag, whatever the hell his name was, fake name was. But this channel, Infinite Plane Society, him and John LeBon, they had mentioned a lot about and talked about the 311 stuff while it was kind of happening, and or just after it kind of happened and stuff, and throughout the CV stuff, they were talking about it constantly and stuff. But funny enough, he uploaded like just a few hours later a video showing 311 and the kind of connections to it from a Seinfeld episode, which was in season 3, episode 11. And I'm not going to like react to the video because I don't think it's necessary. If you want to watch the video, it is called um, Seinfeld Predicts 311, and from this channel, John LeBon. And I mean, if you could see that the link up there, I might link it in the description. But yeah, this is a very interesting.
On March 11, 2020. How this March.
It's a very interesting video, kind of breaking down all of this pretty clear connections and symbolism, whatever you want to say. Some might say predictive programming, even though I don't even believe that necessarily. Just kind of, I don't know, the predictive programming part, but just kind of how the reality works, sort of deal. But the symbolism, very clear, very blatant when you actually kind of like realize it. In this season 3, episode 11 of Seinfeld, and basically connecting it to the whole 311 thing and the CV and like even the other people involved with it, like Tom Hanks and all that shit. Uh, this part.
Maybe you got the flu. Maybe you got the flu.
Like, what the fuck? But yeah, I'd say just watch the video. It's a pretty good listen, and he does a really good job explaining it and everything. But I think that's all I'm gonna go into that just for brevity's sake. And like I said, I think he explains it better. But it's a good video. But I just found it really funny that he talked about that same topic, like literally just a few hours before after I uploaded the thing where I mentioned him and the stuff with 311 and stuff. So that's funny synchronicity. The other thing is that Rudy, I'm just kind of I organize these topics just to talk about the kind of more mundane, not necessarily mundane things, but things I can get through. I don't know. I organize them in a way to make it, hopefully, make it more coherent to talk through, I guess, and a list. But Rudy, you mentioned me with when I guess in one of my videos, my cat was our cat came to the door, and you mentioned something about my body language is like seemed very standoffish. Um, and yeah, as I said in the comment, yeah, I really do like cats now. I used to not. That's the funny thing is I used to not really be that big of a cat person, and kind of similar to Matt, I wasn't really like somebody who voluntarily got a cat or whatever. It was, I don't know, my mom's crazy sister decided to just, who the fuck who does that? Gifts people animals. But she paid for adopting a cat from like the shelter or something like that. Like just one like day randomly because I don't know, my mom said she was lonely or some shit like that. And then she got us a kitten, and somehow I named him Buddy. Initially, I was never like disliked Buddy or anything. I just was I was like, we don't need an animal again. We don't need a cat or whatever. That's so initially I was pretty um cold to him, and not that I was cold to him, but I cold to the idea of having another animal. Like me and my dad both thought we didn't need an animal, but it's just is what it is now. We've had him for years, and I love Buddy. I love basically all animals, but yeah, I do like Buddy a lot. He's a very nice looking cat. He's a very surprisingly affectionate cat, even though he's also mostly an outdoor cat. He's like half and half of that, outdoor, indoor cat, mostly outdoor cat, to an extent. But yeah, I probably my uh, standoffish uh, body language, I guess, or whatever, probably comes from the fact that I don't like him coming in my room just because both me and my dad would have pretty bad allergic reactions to having Buddy in the house initially, but after like I don't know, maybe 3 weeks a month, those at least the main like respiratory ones issues kind of went away, like with the coughing and the congestion and the wheezing and all that bullshit kind of went away. But at least for me, um, if like say if he just happens to scratch me like even either accidentally or I'm just like something happens where he like nicks me or something, like whatever causes that, like it gets really itchy in that spot for like a few hours. Um, but as well as with his fur, because I guess he cleans himself all the time. He's licking himself with his saliva and stuff. It has like whatever proteins supposedly, how that shit works with the cat, and his hair just his fur just, if I have it on my skin for like a few, if I have it on my skin for a little while, then it just gets like irritated and a little bit itchy and stuff. So I'm also just OCD. I don't like hair in general on my clothes or on my bedding, and I really don't want animal hair that could be causing me to get like itchy and potentially like uh, coughing and stuff like that. I prefer him to not be in this room, and I don't like him laying on me. I mean, I would enjoy that, but at the same time, I wouldn't enjoy the fact that he'd be getting his hair all over me, and then I potentially have the issues from that or whatever, the irritations of itching and stuff. That's the main reason. Otherwise, I like Buddy a lot. Um, and I just don't pet him that often, even though I do sometimes, just because it's annoying that I have to clean my hands afterwards and stuff, just because of the hair and stuff. But that's the main reason. Otherwise, I love Buddy. Um, and I like animals. It's funny when you mentioned the cat fractal thing, is that for me, it kind of like happened where dogs stopped occurring as much in my life than they used to. Because I used to see dogs like when, I guess it makes sense, when we had our dog, I would see a lot of people around our neighborhood. that seem to have dogs as well, and they still do. There is still a fair amount of people that like walking their dogs, but I don't recall seeing them nearly as much now. Um, I don't really see that many cats. I mean, when we first got Buddy, I did see a fair amount of cats, but haven't seen another cat in a while. Maybe you ran them all off. I don't know. But yeah, I don't. It's kind of like the one opposite kicking out the other. Like I don't really see much about dogs anymore, but at least in my feeds and stuff, my media feeds, I do see a lot of things about cats. A fair amount of things about cats. But that's probably just because that's, how the algorithms and all that crap works with the internet, feeding me stuff that I've already watched, like the cat videos and stuff. So yeah. Um, and yeah, you mentioned that I mostly go in terms of the Silent Hill stuff. I was going off mostly like secondhand stuff. Just as a disclaimer, I know I don't really need to make any disclaimer, but I might as well. Most things, at least especially involving like video game news or history or whatever, or like stories or themes in games, I'm more of a like at this point I'm more of a person that I just kind of know things about these quote unquote know things about these games, but through that, just like people that are teachers or whatever, they're going and I'm going off of mostly second and third hand accounts in that sense. Like I'm going off of somebody else's that's supposedly more knowledgeable about this thing than I am, kind of stuff. So in terms of like Dragon Ball, like I'm mostly going by the wiki and shit like that. It just kind of comes up otherwise, or some other people's accounts. But otherwise, I haven't watched these Dragon Ball movies. I haven't watched probably the vast majority of Dragon Ball the original series. I just kind of know about it, little things about it, but otherwise I don't know much like actually have watched it either. I mostly, as you said, was somebody who started watching Dragon Ball from Dragon Ball Z and afterward, and then I stopped after I maybe the Buu saga, possibly, that I recall at least. But yeah, so I'm not I haven't played a whole shit ton of games. I just kind of know about stuff in them, and I haven't watched a lot of things. I just kind of happen to know about these things from being somebody who watches a lot of shit with other people talking about it. I guess mostly second and third hand stuff. You mentioned TF2. I brought TF2 up in my comments of my video or in the description of my video because I forgot to mention it. The main reason I brought up TF2 as well in that was because it is another example of the history and the legacy being destroyed. Whereas like now, I mean, it's been that way. Like the game's been in a relatively poor state in terms of many things. Like Valve just kind of fucking it up and then not giving it any attention or any updates or anything like that, as well as just more and more releasing more cosmetics, more maps, like just throwing shit, almost like the AI. It's not AI generated stuff necessarily, but almost like that AI generated shit where it's just throwing stuff on the pile and diluting it. Where now there's been so many hats and so many cosmetics and so many maps that have just been released that do not mesh with with the original kind of like ideas and themes and style of the game, that it's just kind of diluted it and made it worse over time. And the community is gradually, at least parts of it are gradually like kind of accepting that, and then there's others that are saying, no, we want the original how it was, or like the original kind of style of the game and stuff. So just another example of them fucking up a classic or legendary kind of game for its time and all that stuff. That's the main reason I wanted to bring up TF2, but I forgot to. You mentioned the Ninja Turtles cartoon from like the 90s or the 80s. I did remember watching that. I don't remember that much about it. I do remember like one episode where it was specifically about like the pizza xenomorphs or whatever the fuck that whole thing was. Like the xenomorph things that were being made from the pizzas or some shit like that. that was just one of the silly episodes, and I don't know if Turtles in Time went by the cartoon or what, or if those xenomorphs were something that was from another part and then the cartoon adapted that. I don't know, but I do remember that from Turtles in Time, the level with the xenomorphs. And I think the pizza shit episode was involved with that. But yeah, I do remember that show. It was pretty goofy, just like all of those shows, those cartoons like that back then. Uh, and also that was memed a lot. That had a lot of memes I remember from a few things, old internet stuff that I used to watch, like those YouTube poops and stuff, I believe, as well as stuff like Ventrilo harassments, where people would just spam these Ventrilos and annoy the shit out of people. Before when Discord wasn't a thing, so many years, decades ago. Um, I also owned a Dreamcast. We owned like almost every console, almost from what I remember at those times, because our parents kind of spoiled us with that in that way. They just kind of got us whatever we asked in that sense. Um, and yeah, the Dreamcast was pretty cool. The only game that I really remember though, I don't know if Tomba or Tomba 2 was on there. I don't remember. That might have been from the PlayStation, I forget. But I do remember definitely Sonic Adventure 1 that I played on the Dreamcast. And I forget if Sonic Adventure 2 was on the Dreamcast originally, but I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2 mostly on the GameCube re-release or port or whatever the hell it was. I completely forget when the Dreamcast and the GameCube, if they were like in the same generation or whatever. But yeah, I did have a Dreamcast, and it was a good console. It's just as you said, it died so quickly. Stopped getting games for it and everything. It's pretty fucked up. But yeah, it was a cool ass console for the time, especially. You mentioned GameStop. Yeah, GameStop, piece of shit store. The last time I went there was probably like nearing 10 years ago at this point, and there's still one at our mall, the same one that I went to. But when we went there, or when I went there on my own. I think this was after I possibly got a new my that after I quit my one job and then I got another job, or I got poached or whatever. Possibly this was during that, but I went there and there was like no games in there. It was like all just game related shitty merchandise, like Funko Pops and like water bottles and like shit like that, like t-shirts. And I was like thinking, even when I was in there, I was like, what the hell is this, man? Like, where are the games? There's like no games anymore. What the hell is this? So yeah, GameStop, complete not no push joke of a store. The fact that they have game in their title is just an insult at this point. Um, yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know an all right. Just like I mentioned before, I like third hand and second hand and third hand stuff. I know a fair amount about Castlevania just as a franchise and the games that have been throughout its history and stuff. But I haven't played that many of the Castlevanias. And from what I saw, Castlevania 3 definitely seems like probably kind of like the threes. Always the threes, right? Kind of like Mario 3. Some people consider one of the best Marios ever made, and I can kind of agree with that when I kind of look at it. Like, even though Super Mario World, people seem to love to talk about that one so much, it seems like 3 was actually like the most innovative and like kind of fun, especially even for the time or whatever, Mario game. And so many other games, Mario games tried to basically copy it in a way. But besides that, that's kind of what Castlevania 3 probably was in some ways, or could be considered or looked at. But I never personally played Castlevania 3, maybe for a few minutes when I just played it on a ROM or something. But I did remember playing a lot of Castlevania Harmony of Despair, which is actually a fairly modern Castlevania game. It was on the 360. And it was, I guess the special thing about it is that it was like a multiplayer Castlevania game where you could play with like up to four or something like that players online. Um, and yeah, you mostly just played like these pretty big and sprawling levels, but they weren't like, Metroidvania kind of thing. It was just kind of like one big level and then one boss in the middle and in the thing. It was a cool game. I did remember enjoying it a lot, and this is when during the 360 time when I played with my old group of friends a lot on the 360, and we played that a lot, and it was a fun game. I like that one a lot. Um, okay, so Rudy, man, I can't believe it. I've only talked about these things. It's already been over 20 minutes. God damn. I feel like I've been talking fucking my mouth off too. Um, but Rudy, you mentioned the at the beginning of your video, you mentioned the kind of simulation stuff and how this reality works and the how things like possibly spawn in and shit like that. The analogies of this place being a simulation, whatever. Um, and that just made me think when you talked about it like that. It made me think of how some of these other games actually kind of work. And I could probably say one of the better analogies in a way is the way that you were describing it, at least. One of the probably better analogies would be something like World of Warcraft. Or I guess maybe almost any MMO, how they do it. Or at least this is how I kind of know or realized how World of Warcraft did its massive multiplayer thing. Like, so I'm probably not going to do the best way of describing this, but every player is the each server is basically one. At least this is how it worked originally. In the newer versions of WoW, they use this shit where it's these what is it called? These instance. It's not the right term for it. Shards or some shit. Like basically they have the servers working together to kind of like split up the load kind of, and people can be within their own kind of like little microcosm in an area while others are still in there on a different server, shit like that. But the original was more kind of made more sense. It wasn't like this big like fractured shit kind of deal. But the original was basically you had one server per server that you could connect to and join and everything. And you'd have your characters on for that server and stuff. And let's just say that server was literally just one physical server somewhere in Activision's server farm or whatever. And that server is that server is what was doing all of the work, basically all of the math and all of the calculations and a lot of that stuff was going through the server and to the players' clients, that being their computer. And basically the communication between the server and the clients, the players' PCs, is what allowed there to be a cohesive world kind of between multiple different players from all around the world. That's kind of how multiplayer works, I guess. But in World of Warcraft's case, they 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 had different zones on the map. Like the entire world was not loaded all at once on the server, but the server only kind of loaded up those areas in like chunks, kind of like Minecraft, I guess you could say, in sections to save load, which makes sense. I think most people can understand that. Like, you don't want to load everything, otherwise that's a massive amount more work to do for the server than just doing it in like pieces where necessary. And so if a player was going through a specific zone, like say Elwyn Forest, say like I mostly know this because of like doing stuff and seeing stuff in private servers and researching stuff like that, how it kind of worked. But say if say if the server only had one player on it, just to make the example simple, if there was just one player connected to the server, if they were in one zone, say Dun Moreau or whatever, the dwarf starting area, places like Black Rock Mountain and Burning Steps and all these other zones that were fucking so far away comparatively, they would never be loaded. Um, they would never be loaded, and the server wouldn't have to worry about them until somebody came to that zone and needed that stuff to be loaded. Then the server would worry about that stuff and actually load that area. So most of the world, that's what I could say as the analogy here, is that our world, whatever you want, this realm is kind of probably pretty similar in some senses, if you want to kind of simplify it in that way, is individuals that are potentially not NPCs or real or whatever. They cause the server, the realm, to load when they come to these areas. Like when you turn the corner, just like in the Matrix or whatever, like that cat or that lady didn't exist or whatever, until you turn that corner, kind of shit. So it was pretty similar how it worked in the server architecture or whatever, for these MMOs, is that, that enemy wasn't loaded, didn't exist in the wetlands until you turn that corner through the gates of the wetlands through Loch Modan or whatever shit. And yeah, like that. It's probably not the best way to describe it. But at the same time, there's other stuff like Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, that had the NPCs. They had these not very complex, but for the time, complex schedules that they would all have. Like they would do certain things at certain times, like go find something to eat, or go do a certain task, or go to a certain place, or whatever. Certain parts. Some would even have stuff where, like, certain parts of the month, they would go to a different place or a different city or something like that. But I don't exactly. I tried to ask on another server, on another Discord server, like if people knew how that kind of worked. Because I was wondering, I was like, well, how did you know? How does the game know where an NPC should be if they've been unloaded until just you got near their area or something like that? I would imagine that behind the scenes they probably kind of have all of these schedules sort of listed to some extent, and whenever the game time changes, then it updates to that and it says this character should be here. So if you went to that area, you would find them there or something like that. But if you didn't go there, then it would just keep cycling through that and say, okay, next time, if there's another hour, they should be over here or something like that. That's what I would imagine it kind of does, but I'm not certain. But yeah, just some food for thought, I guess, on the kind of video game analogy thing for how this place works. Um, and you mentioned I think that was the second part. Yeah, the second part where the guy was doing the snapping his fingers, and then the video would get like compressed more or whatever, like recompressed or something, and it would get lower and lower quality and more distorted and shit. Um, Wait, with the preservation thing you mentioned with the Sega, like you have like all the Sega games on your computer and stuff like that. Now, I just wanted to mention, just as a interesting thing to consider with that, is that even with digital preservation such like that, one has to kind of look at it potentially like that as well. Is that the more that this stuff kind of gets changed or distributed over time, these ROMs, in this case, like these game ROMs, there is potentially just going to be more and more distortion from what the original source actually was, and it's going to become more and more different or potentially worse. Like, I say that mostly coming from the fact that there is a lot of ROMs out there for certain games that are just like straight up broken or just shitty compared to like actually like good ROMs or whatever, like ones that are accurate and stuff. Such as when I was showing it. To be fair, maybe that's also the emulator. I don't know for sure. But when I was playing Bomberman Hero, I was seeing some of those weird things, like the artifacts, or some of those graphical artifacts on the title screens and certain things like that. I was saying, like, that doesn't seem right. And I would imagine that's potentially because of just the ROM itself. Possibly the emulator, but potentially the ROM. Uh, as well as stuff like the performance being excessively bad. But that could be for other reasons. But I checked it again without this recording running, and it was still just that bad in the same area. So I don't know what the deal with that was. But just something to note that potentially ROMs can also be degraded over time, thus the preservation stuff becoming harder and harder to do or less accurate, that kind of thing, and history still being destroyed technically just from age or whatever you want to say. Um okay, yeah, you mentioned the Silent Hill 2 thing. Once again, yeah, you're right. As I mentioned, I don't really know anything about the Silent Hill games besides what I've heard from other people and kind of like looked at from Wikipedia's not Wikipedia, what game wiki entries and shit like that. But I've never played any of them. I just know some things about them. And yeah, I didn't actually know that, but when I looked at it, when you mentioned it and when I looked it up, I was like, yeah, that makes complete sense. With the biblical symbolism in Silent Hill 2, um, and you mentioned the Virgin Mary or whatever. I didn't know about what you were talking about. I didn't know that there was like this whole prostitute or whore thing or whatever in that whole story. Like I don't know much about the Bible, but yeah, I didn't know about that. But yeah, you're correct that at least as far as I can interpret, um, in Silent Hill 2, there's like two different characters, like kind of opposites. Um, characters. So you got your character James, which I wouldn't be surprised if that has some biblical connotations. Just I don't know for sure there, but you got his wife, who is named Mary, and she is a pretty, I guess, a pretty nice woman, I guess, kind, sweet young woman, and all that stuff. And he was her wife, um, or he is her wife, or he was her wife, but before she died. Um, but you got her, but then throughout the game, you have this other one trying to basically seduce James, or like, yeah, basically to seduce James with like her sexual attractiveness and stuff like that, and that kind of like sexual energy, nature, or whatever. Uh, with the same name instead of Mary, Maria, or like very similar names, Maria. And in the end, she's actually like a fucking basically a succubus or some shit like that. So, yeah, just kind of funny. I didn't realize that theme until you mentioned it, or that kind of thing. So that is a thing in Silent Hill 2, and it made me realize that at least through the first three games, Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, there's fucking, which you might find interesting with the biblical stuff, is that it's a massive amount of like biblical symbolism and themes throughout all three of them. Like I think in the third game, you were playing the daughter of the main of the protagonist of the first game. And I think some shit like she gets impregnated with like the devil basically, or some shit like that, like the child or the devil or some shit like that. And in the first game, you actually like are basically fighting a devil, kind of. Um, yeah, and that's what I wanted to bring up was this one song that comes up when you fight this fucking devil, and the song is called, like, I guess the entirety of Silent Hill 1, the original game, has a whole shit ton of this like really really uncomfortable or unsettling like industrial music, kind of like really industrial like music where it's fucking everything is like like somebody's literally going into the back into a into the back area of like a kitchen and just bashing the shit out of pans or something like that. Like fucking super metallic, fucking sharp sounding stuff. Um, but this one, here, let me, yeah, the song. If you want to listen to it for whatever reason, it's actually a weirdly good song. At least I like, even though it's supposed to be really unsettling and disturbing. It's a pretty good song, I think. Um, but it is from the original Silent Hill. It's called My Heaven. And yeah, it's just fucking like it's a really disturbing song, but it's very good at the same time. Guess we'll listen to a little bit of it, even though it's it's not that enjoyable to listen to, probably. And this is while you're getting like you literally have like fucking this angel devil abomination trying to kill you after just coming out of like your daughter or some bullshit like that. And with the whole Silent Hill 2 remake ruining stuff, it also changed a lot of the music, which fucked up a lot of the kind of horror feel of stuff. Which I'd imagine if they did the same thing, then it would ruin this. This meant to be very disturbing song. I think at the end it gets really fucking bad. Yeah, it's just kind of, but yeah, pretty disturbing. Uh, which is, I guess, why a lot of people like the original three Silent Hills. I think that's all I had to talk about for Silent Hill, at least. Okay, now, goddamn, been almost 40 minutes. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Now the next things I'm gonna talk about is mostly kind of like stuff that I found after the fact when I was looking into some of these things, like the cells, the cell max stuff, the gammas thing, this other shit with the red pharmaceuticals. But yeah, I didn't even think until you mentioned it, the red pharmaceuticals. It didn't come to my mind at all the China thing for whatever reason. It's just I don't know. That's not something I know that you've had China come almost as like a part of a fractal to you, like with the Winnie the Pooh and the Chinese balloon, I think, and some other stuff like that. But China never really registered besides being involved with the whole COVID CV thing to me. But yeah, I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. But yeah, you mentioned even in the video I'm responding to in this case, that yeah, when you said the red pharmaceuticals, it would immediately make me think of the China virus or the CV, um, coming from China. At least that was the story and all that shit. Um, oh yes, 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 yes. Uh, I have to find that now. God damn it. Okay, let me find that. And yes, I'm not editing anything, sorry. I'm too goddamn lazy. But I think he uploaded today. Yes, he did. Good. And he had a video that showed Cell Max.
Okay, this time.
And yeah, I didn't even I didn't even notice, but
Yeah, Cellmax is an instant win. I
oh
literally
no no.
just damn fun. But the Gammas, dude, I'm
Yeah, I didn't even notice. His fucking tail. Cell Max's tail. I don't know how I didn't notice that. It's a COVID ball. it's a fucking COVID spiked ball. Uh gee, what the hell? It's a COVID spiked ball, which is funny because the original Cell, from the original Cell saga, uh, his tail had nothing to do with like a ball or anything like that. It was a needle. Actually, goddamn, a needle. I didn't even think of that. It was a fucking needle, just like the jibbity jab. And he stuck it into people like the jibbity jab. There you go. Cell, even the original Cell saga had a whole shit ton of symbolism there with the CV stuff. There you go. There's your nice fucking jibbity jab. Oh my god. I didn't even think of that one. Well, there you go. More and more connections there with Cell and CV, I guess. Um yes, okay, that part. So this one I didn't even, like I said, I didn't even think about. So weirdly enough, in this game, Dragon Ball the Breakers or whatever, uh you got the Raider has four stages of evolution generally. And so you start at level 1, you go to level 2, you go to level 3, and then you go to level 4. It's generally the final one. But for this Raider, the Gammas, for whatever reason, even though the two Gamma androids, they're basically like the same exact thing in terms of strength or whatever, kind of. Like maybe in the movie, like one of them is stronger than the other. But for some reason, when you're at level 1, you don't play as Gamma 1, you play as Gamma 2. And at level 2, you play as Gamma 1 instead of Gamma 2, which is, like, to me, I'd say, like, why would they do that? Fucking weird. But I would say kind of 2 into 1 symbolism right there, or whatever you go. You're going from fucking Gamma 2 and then to Gamma 1, 2 into 1. Uh, Possibly a stretch, but I don't know. Um, and something with Gamma 1 and 2, their design. Gamma 1 and 2 Dragon Ball. They... Yeah, you got... Gamma 2 has, like, these two fucking... I guess you could call them fins or pillars, basically, coming off of his head. And then Gamma 1 has one. So, once again, kind of 2 into 1. And... the 9/11 symbolism, or whatever, the 911 symbolism, is the two towers becoming one, or whatever. Like once the two towers fell, then they built the one tower, or whatever, the stupid the stupid one tower. So once again, 2 into 1. uh 2 into 1 with that. Was there something? There was, might have been. Oh yes. So I looked it up that the gamma in the Greek numerical system or whatever, gamma is actually the third number or whatever, the third number or letter in that whatever thing. Yeah, it's like the third number in the Greek number system. Uh so gamma 1 and gamma 2, two gammas. They're basically they're essentially like twins, not exactly, but they're basically twins. So both of them are gamma, both 33. And if you want to say gamma 1 and gamma 2, and then if you want to say that they afterwards is another android, that being Cell Max. And Cell starts with a C instead of, a gamma, which is, but C is the third letter of the English alphabet. So 33 or 31, 32, and then Cell is possibly 33. And 33 just kind of, I don't know, like just the fact that it kind of is there, it just made me laugh. I was like, yeah. So they got Gamma 1, 3, Gamma 2, 3. Cell starts with the C, 3, 33, and then, yeah. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up before I forgot. Um, oh yeah, that was Gamma is the third letter of the alphabet, which is interesting, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then there was another thing that I for some reason I remembered that in Sonic Adventure 1, they introduced a character called Gamma, or the Gammas. They introduced these robots, the Gammas, and you played as one of them, E-102 Gamma, and E-102 Gamma. And he has a shit ton of brothers that are basically the same as him, just slightly different versions or whatever. But yeah, you play as this one Gamma 102-3 or 102 Gamma. And yeah, his design doesn't necessarily have anything particular that jumps out at me. But yeah, just the fact that his name and the fact that he is a robot in this case, but also the fact that in all the Sonic games, at least up to that point, I believe, and possibly like a little bit later, um, like in all the Sonic games, Robotnik's robots were made from like kidnapped forest animals or some shit like that. Like, I don't know how the fuck that works, but whatever the fuck he was doing, he was kidnapping these forest animals and turning them into the badniks, the robots that he would make. And whenever you would destroy one of these robots, generally a animal would pop out. Suggesting that, yeah, he's incorporating these animals into these robots that he's making. I don't know, possibly some weird shit to do with like requiring a soul or something like that. I don't know, or the fact and symbolism of mixing organic life with machines, in general. But that is a big theme of Gamma in Sonic Adventure 1. The story in his story is that he is he is a he was a bird that was he was a bird that I guess was kidnapped, and all of the other Gammas were also made out of similar, or like other birds or something like that, like that being, I guess, his family members basically, as a bird. um so in the end of his story, Gamma, fuck it, let me just look it up. Gamma, yeah, fuck, Sonic Adventure 1 Gamma ending. I don't know. Oh, look at that. 1109, 911. um, boss fight. And yeah, Gamma is fighting his own, like, his own brothers or whatever. He's trying to purposely free them from their robot bodies that they've been, like, basically entrapped in by Robotnik. But yeah, as soon as the one that, I guess that was E100 Gamma that he defeated, and as soon as it blows up, a fucking bird pops out, so... And then, afterwards, Gamma either dies or kills himself. And one of the other birds pops out, that being presumably Gamma himself. That was the bird. But the main idea being that Robotnik's robots were all made from the merging of organic life with machine life. Or, not machine life, but machines mixing with the organics. And similar to... I don't know if in Dragon Ball Superhero, if the Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, if they are technically organic androids, like bio-androids, or if Cell is bio-androids, because, like, in the original Cell Saga, Android 17 and Android 18 are bio-androids, a mixture of machine and life, or machine and biological life. And Cell is a bio-android as well, but Android 16 is a full-on machine android like Terminator. So I'm not sure if Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 are like a bio-android or a full machine. I would assume that they're probably bio-androids, because I think that would make the most sense. But Cell himself is definitely a bio-android. But just the fact that these characters in Sonic Adventure 1 are, I guess technically all of the robots in, almost all the robots in Robotnik's army are bio-androids to an extent, because they are a mixture of these animals, biological life, with these machines. And especially these Gammas, as clear, they are basically kind of androids. The birds mixed with robots. I don't know. It just a weird thing that I noticed when I was looking at some of this shit. And yeah, just the Gamma Greek letter or whatever. And yeah, the way that Gamma is represented, not the up, I don't, maybe the uppercase means something to somebody, but it seems to mostly be represented with the lowercase, which apparently it looks like a Y. And this is probably a stretch, but I just felt like mentioning it because I thought about it. Is that a Y is two paths converging into one. So Gamma, even itself, the is two into one. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I just thought about that one. And I find it interesting that the the character, or whatever you want to call it, the Greek character after Gamma is Delta. And if you know anything about calculus, you would know that delta is change, or change over time, I guess. Change of any changeable quantity. Yeah, it's change over time. And I would just say that it's interesting that it's right after Gamma. So, like, after the Gammas, at least in the Dragon Ball example, after the Gammas became Cell Max, changed the two Gamma androids, the potentially, like, good AI, changed into something else. After the Gammas became something else, the change afterwards. I don't know. Just something I think it's interesting that right after Gamma is Delta, which means change. And also interesting, especially to me, is that the uppercase representation for Delta is a pyramid, or a triangle. It's a pyramid triangle thing. So it's kind of interesting as well, even with threes there, besides all the other symbolism with a pyramid and triangles. But the fact that it's a triangle also says another three. So still three edges or whatever. So strange there. Strange coincidence there. Has a shape of triangle. Now this is related to Earthbound. Earthbound in the Mother series is that it's used the Greek alphabet as the tiers for the PSI abilities or magic abilities, whatever you want to call it. So instead of like level 1, level 2, level 3, you have something like alpha, something beta, something gamma, something omega, that kind of thing. Primarily alpha, beta, gamma, omega. It uses some of the other ones too, but mostly those ones. Just an interesting note is that in Mother 1, the PSI beam ability is also called, or it's actually called Psi Beam Gamma. Like that's its name, and Psi Beam, or at least there might be different Psi beams like Alpha, but at least in this case, Psi Beam Gamma is the most powerful one of that beam ability because it is the only one that can, as far as I know, is the only one that can actually do like a one-hit kill on anything, potentially. Almost anything. Weirdly enough, I think certain machine enemies are immune to it. But other enemies they're not immune to it, so like if you hit any enemy no matter how much health it has, it'll be an instant kill. So just kind of interesting. And then that leads into the interesting thing that in Earthbound and Mother 3, um, the healing PSI, which there's healing alpha, healing beta, healing gamma, and healing omega. And all of those healing PSI abilities are meant to heal like status effects. But I find it interesting that healing gamma is the first one that can bring back a ally from being dead, or at least whatever, incapacitated. So I don't know, just kind of interesting that once it gets to gamma, that is when there is either gamma from the beam is death, or gamma from the healing is life. I guess I don't know, just just something I felt like came to my mind. And then I guess the last thing that I have on my notes here, at least, is that when I looked up gamma, um, just the name itself, gamma, on image search, when I was looking up gamma, I noticed like a whole shit ton of magenta, fucking colors and stuff, and it just made me laugh because I was like, yeah. Like just looking up gamma, I was like, I mean, yeah, there's stuff that's not magenta, but like the vast majority of things that have colors are like some kind of magenta color in it. Like even this stupid PowerPoint grading is fucking magenta. Magenta or gamma AI is like a whole shit ton of magenta as well. It's funny that just looking up gamma even brings up these characters. Like there's so many other things for gamma, but then the Dragon Ball comes up, so it's like what the hell. Uh yeah, I guess it's not all everything, but it's a good amount of stuff with the like purplish magenta going on. Specifically whatever the hell this stupid software is or whatever gamma. Uh Now is there anything else that I wanted to bring up specifically? Probably not. I do think it's interesting that I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense in Earthbound and the Mother's case or whatever that they have alpha, beta, gamma, one, two, three, but then the last rank is omega, the end. I guess I don't know. I just find it interesting still. Um, And the Greek alphabet is fucking weird, man. There's so much. I mean, then you got fucking with Half-Life, you got the lambda symbol and all that stuff. The Half-Life series and all that shit. So much fucking symbolism with the Greek alphabet, man. It's fucking nuts. Uh, but I think that's all I wanted to talk about, and I just hit over an hour, so I guess perfect timing to say that I got what I wanted to say out in this case, or everything that I could think of on my notes to talk about. But okay, my mouth is tired, my throat's tired, but yeah, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed or whatever, and see you next time. Take care.